Hi, everybody. Welcome to our webinar with Janean Murphy and Dr. Phil Cheatham. We'll give everybody a couple more minutes to finish joining, but we're super excited about this event. Janean's going to be presenting some very, very cool case studies of her real students. She grabbed a variety of different students, age groups, gender, skill levels, and the kind of issues that they're working on. So it should be very, very educational and practically really useful for anybody who's in coaching. Just to introduce myself, my name is Ji-Hei Lee. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Sportsbox AI. Dr. Phil Cheatham is with us. He is the Chief Science Officer of Sportsbox AI. Everyone should know who he is. And obviously everyone here should know who Janean is. You're here for her content. Janean is the 2024 LPGA Teacher of the Year, and she's at Meadowbrook Country Club in Missouri, if you're in the area. I know we have mostly coaches, but some non-coach golfers who are really, these are our favorite kind of golfers who are really eager to learn more, absorb lots of knowledge, and are data geeks like us. So if you're looking to connect with Janean and you're in the area, you can look her up. But yeah, we're excited to present this content to you guys. Why don't we, Janean, I'll talk about Sportsbox in a bit, but tell us a little bit about your journey with Sportsbox so far.
Yeah. So I've always been interested in this sort of thing. I started with KVest back in 2017. And then, Brian Jacobs actually kind of told me about you guys coming out with your new software and everything that it does. And I guess I got in with you guys, was it that maybe the end of 2021 or beginning of 2022, somewhere in there. And so I've just kind of been with you guys and just try to make it work and get in there and play around with it. And I don't know, I'm still learning how all the different numbers work and every day, but I get in there and use it with my clients and it helps get results quicker. So I love it.
Awesome. So it's now 3:03. Okay, so we'll get started now officially. Welcome everybody. We'll have Janean present on some real case studies of real students of hers, talking about a variety of different swing issues or swing changes that she's worked on with Sportsbox and what kind of numbers were helpful for making those changes. So it should be very educational for everybody. I'll do about 5 minutes on Sportsbox because some of you may not be 100% familiar with what we do. Essentially, I always like to start with this slide. A lot of people think about Sportsbox and 3D as this biomechanics, scientific thing, which we are. But at the end of the day, it's just measurements, putting numbers to things that should be measured versus just eyeballed. Um, a golf swing is this incredibly complex thing that's really difficult to assess correctly if you're just looking at it on video. And just like we no longer have to rely on our eyeballs for assessing ball flight or club data, which are also very difficult to know, shot A versus shot B, if you're trying to assess which shot went further, higher, or spun faster, like you just can't do that with your eyeballs. And we don't have to because we now have devices that measure accurately what's happening and what the differences are. And we now have an incredibly easy to use set of products that allow you to measure the golf swing. And just the same way that we now measure the ball flight and the club delivery data. And so that's really it. Yes, it's 3D, but let's not get hung up on the fact that it's 3D. And yes, it's helpful to have some basic knowledge of biomechanics, but just like you don't have to be a physicist to use TrackMan and Foresight, you don't have to be a biomechanist to use Sportsbox or 3D data. And so essentially what we want to accomplish is you don't have to just look at this video. You can use data to know exactly what's going on, what the difference is between swing A and swing B. And it's all done through your mobile phone, and taking one swing video allows you to get all of the different 3D views of the swing through this avatar, which Janean will talk about a little bit later, how that comes in handy. But you also get hundreds of different numbers, trackers, and indicators that allow you to talk about the motion with some data. So that's really what's happening. And we've built a suite of coaching tools. A lot of people, again, another misconception is that we're trying to somehow, replace the coaches out there. Absolutely not. We want to give the coaches a powerful set of tools to do what they do best, better. And communicate more clearly and precisely, and keep their students engaged closely by knowing exactly what they're doing when you're not with them physically. They're practicing, you should know exactly what kind of progress they're making. And Sportsbox makes all of those things incredibly easy. So that's really it for our side. Just a couple of housekeeping things. If you haven't seen some of our updates yet on the coaches side, we've made improvements on drawing tools and screen recording. You'll see some of these changes coming through. We're constantly improving the app and taking feedback from you guys. So go check it out if you haven't yet. With that, I will hand things over to Janean.
All right. Thanks for being here. I'm excited to go over kind of how I work with my everyday clients, club members, junior golfers. You're probably gonna, if you're a coach and teaching and using Sportsbox, you're gonna recognize some of your own students when I pull up mine. So I'm just showing you tonight, my goal is to just show you how I use the software to communicate with my students, what I see that I want to work on. So that's my goal. I will say when I teach outside, when you see the videos from the outside, I'm probably using my iPad to capture it. Just it's easier to show it on a bigger monitor, you know, from the iPad. If I'm in my little studio, the lighting's really bad in there and it's a very small space. I typically record on my iPhone. It just gets better images than the iPad for some reason. And so anyways, just wanted to let you know that. So I am recording. I have a new iPad Pro, the newest iPhone, and I feel like I get really good captures. So I'm going to start sharing my screen. So give me 1 second.
So while you do that, let me ask you a couple questions. What kind of golfers do you teach, or is it really the full spectrum?
I would say it really is the full spectrum for me. I'm at a private country club. I mean, I teach group instruction in private, but in my private lessons, I would say it's mainly men and juniors more so than women. But I teach a wide range. And then as far as skill level, I teach anything from the beginner golfer to the you know, I have some single digit handicaps that I'm going to show. And then I purposely picked one lady who's never played golf and I wanted to show her swing, like how I used it for somebody who's never even held a club. So quite the range. And so, oops, sorry. Hang
You can
on.
kind of swipe me off the screen.
That's what I was trying to do, and I hit you and made you big. So, yeah, so wide range of players. I have this is John. He's older gentleman. We've been working together since 2023. I wanted to show you his very first capture. So, back then, obviously, I was still learning all the trackers and what they mean. So at this time, I probably really looked more at turn and rotation of the pelvis and chest more than anything, even more than sway. But he's used to be a competitive golfer and he had hip replacement surgery. So when I play this video, you're going to tell that his hips are not working. So I'm going to open this up. And I'm just going to play it so you can just see it with your own eyes. All right. All right, so there's John a few years back and what I had to work with. And so he told me his goal was to become competitive again. He used to be a pretty competitive player. He was a single digit golfer and he had lost a lot of distance, as you can see from that swing. He's not going to hit it very far. And his goal was to be able to be competitive again. So I did my assessment. Just in general, he's grip style. He's an under golfer with his grip. He's a center post. So to me, he did not have much hip turn at all, just watching that. So that's probably back then in 2023 what I focused on the most. So I would have probably taken him to the top and looked at his numbers and said, oh, it's not bad. I can tell you're a little stiff. I might open up the tracker and just kind of look across the board. I'm like, okay, I can see there. That to me is a big red flag. You can see there's red all across the board. I might open up his pelvis and take a quick peek. I'm like, not bad in the backswing, but it's a big red flag to me in his downswing coming into impact that there's something going on there. So as I'm talking to him, I would be going through whatever I'm talking about with him. Like I said, at this point, in 2023, I would have been talking about more turn and how he's a lot under rotated at this point. Although I would tell him I do like that your chest is behind the pelvis at -9 versus 6, but it's still a lot under turn. But we know that you're not going to be able to turn because of your hip surgery. So when we get in here, and then here's where you really see just everything shuts down and he just swipes it with his arms. So then John and I would have a conversation about, well, what can he do? So that's where he and I probably started talking about, well, can he just get more to his left side? So now I'm going to scroll up. I'm going to pause on this one and show you how I used it. I'm not going to play the video, but I made a video for him right here. He is a visual. He loves the numbers, but he's also visual. He asked me to compare him to me. He wanted to see how I use my hips. So I went in and I did the side by side and I compared us. And I would stop me in certain positions and show my numbers and show him his. And for him, he really liked it. This was probably, I think, like a 4-minute video. That's why I'm not going to play this one. But this is something you can do, whether you're comparing your student to yourself or another player or their own self from a previous capture. I felt this was a great way to use the software because it was something that gave him a visual of, he knew how he was doing it and he wanted to see how somebody else did it. You can see here, this is a capture from June 12th. He's still having some issues, but what I wanted to show you was our last. We had a lesson this month. I believe it was September 12th. And let me find a face on with an iron. I just wanted to show you, like, here we've been working together from November 2023, and this is May 12th. Just him practicing over a year. What a difference. It's not perfect, but he's got his distance back. He's been competing in some tournaments. Huge difference. I was so proud of him.
You could really tell. So what numbers did like resonated with him? I'm curious because
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like I said, for him, it was really because of the hip surgery, he was having a difficult time turning. So we ended up kind of focusing more on his sway numbers. Let's get him to the top. And now I'm going to just slowly start bringing him down. For him, getting over to his left side better at impact is what made a difference. And look how his pelvis number is green here, where remember he was like at 6 or something before. Look at that. Just working on his lower body over the last year and a half together. I was really impressed, but I want to show you. So like I've been really working on understanding sway gap and watching the 3-part series that Terry put out. If you missed that one, I'm sure you can go back and rewatch it, but just understanding that better. And so John came to me on this specific lesson, and right at the end, he brought up his driver to me and he goes, you know, Janine, I'm shooting about 78 to 84 but it's because I have like 3 to 4 holes where I duck hook my driver. And I was like, okay, let me take a look at that. So this is one where he did hook it. I realized I didn't really capture any after we made a change. But so what I did for him, again, this is after watching Terry explain sway gap. Now I like feel like I have a much better handle on it. What I noticed is look at, like I said, he's an under golfer, so we know his trail shoulder is going to be lower than his left. But to me, I felt like it was excessive lower at address. Normally, I think we only want to be like 2 to 3 inches lower for an under golfer, and he's at 4 inches. And so when he got that, loaded in that reverse K position, the only thing he could do was like he would get a lot of side bend and then he would just swipe his hands through. So I'm going to walk you through that. So it looks good here, but then look at this. And then he would have to, kind of use his hands to get through. So what we started doing is at his setup position. Like I said, unfortunately, I didn't grab any. We just did an experiment. I had him hit 3 balls, feeling like his right shoulder was really dropped. And then I had him hit 3 to 4 balls where to him, it felt like his shoulders were level. And then once he felt like his shoulders were level and he was more stacked, where his upper body was stacked over his pelvis, he started hitting just straight shots or a baby draw. And then I had him go back to what felt like his normal, where that right shoulder was really tilted back, and he started hooking it again. So then just this past Saturday, what was that, 2 days ago, he sent me a text. He said he shot 74. He only had one hole where he hooked it and it cost him a shot. But other than that, he said just understanding his setup and what worked better for him really made a difference. So I
Awesome.
felt
We have a
that.
question here from
Oh, yeah.
Bill. Which
Yeah.
hip did he have his surgery on?
I think if it is his, he might have had it on both, but I want to say it was his left hip. Gosh, I forgot. It's been so long. But yeah,
Yeah,
so that was,
left hip makes sense based on
yeah,
this.
I'm pretty sure it was his left hip, but I almost think he had both hips replaced over time. So, all right, I'm going to pick a junior now. So I'm going to get out of that.
By the way, if anyone else has questions, use the Q&A function. We'll try to answer them either by typing them or I'll bring them up to Janine.
Okay, so this is a different John, high school boy. I just started working with him this September. He just started playing golf. He's an athlete, but in May decided that he's going to really put an effort in golf. He worked with one of our assistants, so he has a really nice base. But this Saturday, again, I'm going to go back to Sway Gap. So he came to me and he's like, I'm hitting better, but I'm really inconsistent. I'm topping the ball. When I miss it, I'm hitting it fat. And so, like I said, immediately I was like, let's check your setup position. So let me find his first swing of the day from this Saturday. He really likes the numbers, this kid. You can see I take a lot of pictures because he wants to know how his number changed. So here's his first swing of the morning, or I think afternoon. I'm just going to play it for you.
How old is he?
I think he's about 15. So it looks good, but to me, I was like, at the top of his backswing, to me, let me get at the top. I was like, ooh, I felt like he was kind of getting a little reverse pivot or leaning that upper body too much towards the target. And so I went here. I'm going to look at that sway gap. I was like, okay, you're pretty neutral. Your trail shoulder is almost level. I was like, so John, let's look at the top of your backswing and see if you stay as close to that as possible. Now, he is a side on golfer with his grip and he's a front post. So I was like I said, everything I've been learning from Terry, he's like, you should stay kind of whatever you are at address. That's what you should kind of be at the top. But look at how much he moved on his sway gap. It increased by quite a bit. So then I started looking, I was like,
And
okay, so
just so everyone here knows, sway gap is negative when your chest is behind your the center of your chest is behind your center of your pelvis. This positive 2.6 would mean that his center of his chest is actually in front of his center of his pelvis, which is, I mean, definition of a reverse pivot.
Yes. So when you look at his chest sway number at the top of his backswing, it's 4.5. Remember, address puts you at 0. So if you're new to this, you can see his pelvis and chest are zeroed out. And then when I go to the top, I was like, okay, his pelvis moved a little, but he's really moving that chest. So I was like, okay, John, we need to come up with I said, you understand the concept, but we got to come up with what helps you stay the same. And so I just told him, I was like, right now, I said, just try to keep your upper body right over your pelvis, just like you were at address. So I let him hit some balls. I take some captures. I'm just going to pick one randomly to look at. So I'm going to pick this one. This is 3 or 4 captures later. So let's play it.
By the way, again, positive sway, pelvis or chest sway means that they're closer to the target than they were at address. That's 0 at address. If it goes negative, you're moving away from the target. And if you're positive, pelvis or chest sway means you're closer to the target. So he moved 4.5 inches closer to the target at the top of his backswing, which is a lot.
That was a lot. So this one, we can see at address, he had his right shoulder tilted a little, but he's still pretty neutral. But let's look at this one. Way better. Look, he cut it in half. He went from 4.6 to 2.3 with his chest sway. So much better. And he started striking the ball so much better once we got this under control. It was pretty cool to see. Just within a matter of like 3 to 4 swings, he started getting it. To him, he said, he's my lefty. He said it felt better to him if his right shoulder, so this wasn't where he told me this, but there's a bucket of balls behind him kind of off screen. And he's like, if he kept his right shoulder pointing at that. So I'm going to see if I can find one of those swings. I don't know. We'll just try this one. See how he did. I'm not going to just play it. I'm just going to go here. So sway gap is 1.4. Yeah, he stayed about the same, 2.6. So, but he's improved it so much better. His ball striking improved in just a short period of time. And you can see he's going to strike this ball much cleaner than what he was doing earlier. So that was one way I used it for him.
What was the drill that worked for him or
So we've done a lot of uneven slopes where he hits off of a down slope. If you walk out to the front of our range, past the mats, past that, there's a second tier. So sometimes we'll go out there. He really likes that drill the most. So that's one that we do. And he definitely can't sway forward on that one, when I have him hitting off a downslope. So for a front post golfer, that would be a really good one, in my opinion, to give them if you have access to that. I know not everybody has access to a downslope, but that was that I do. And so that worked out great for him. So I want to show you one of my girls. Let's see.
Is John using Sportsbox for practice? I saw a little swing monitor session there in your feed.
Yeah, I tried it. Where was that? It might be up a little more. Yeah, right. I was like, John, let's try this. I'm like, I'm still learning, what all the features of Sportsbox do. And so I think we captured like 3 swings. I went in there and set the sway gap, and I just let him I just held it and let him do a little work on it. So that's just me kind of playing around. So any questions on John? Okay, so I'm going to show you one of my girls. She's a freshman. So let's see. I don't have a ton, but okay, this is from Saturday. I'm going to just show you this one. This is her driver. She has trouble with her driver. She sometimes pops it up or tops it. Same thing, contact. She is front post and on more of a on top grip style. So again, I was looking at her sway gap first, since her contact is the issue. And oh, let me just play her swing for you. Hang on. So kind of like John, she kind of leans into her lead side. So let me get her zeroed out. So you can see she's pretty normal sway gap, what I would expect of that front post kind of side on top golfer. And then when she gets to the top, you can see, look how much her sway gap increased. So that tells me there's an issue. But with her, it's more just like I felt like she was just kind of leaning more with that upper body, just a touch. But look how much her pelvis moved like back behind the ball, and then her chest kind of stayed on the ball. So for her, the numbers didn't make as much sense. So what I did for Mia, what really connected and helped her in our practice, so I went to the visuals and used her avatar. And this is what made more sense for her. Sorry, let me move this over. So I shrunk her down and said, let's look at your avatar. And I got her all lined up. And what I did is I said, okay, Mia, you can see the yellow line represents your pelvis. The purple line represents your upper body. And we can see when you're at a dress, the lines are kind of stacked on top of each other. So what we want to see is when you're at the top of your backswing, that they're in a similar position. So I took her to the top, and then I was like, does that look like it's in a similar position? And she said, no, my chest is like quite a bit in front of my pelvis. And I said, that's what we have to fix. We need to get those numbers, or those lines, to align a little bit tighter together for you. Because I said, look, when you go down, by the time your lead arm is parallel to the ground, we need to start seeing the pelvis starting to take the lead, and it's not. I said, look here, it's still behind. It's still behind. Okay, your shaft's parallel and you're just now catching up. I said, are you going to have a lot of power there? You have no separation. And so as I told her that, she was like, oh, well, that makes sense. So maybe sometimes with your students, you don't need to show the numbers. The drawing tools are fantastic, and you can show people stuff. So this made more sense to her to see the lines. And anyway, so we worked on that. She's in a group of 4 to 5 girls that come on Saturdays with me. So she was my first one I recorded, so I didn't get a ton of video on her, but she went back to her station and worked on it, and was hitting much better by the end of practice. So that's what I did with Mia. And did anyone have questions about her?
Was there a drill or like a cue that worked for her?
Yeah, for her, I actually asked her to just try to keep her pelvis like still. I said, you can turn your shoulders, you can swing your arms, but I said, I want your pelvis to stay more centered. I said, I don't want it going like, here's her iron swing. With her irons, she's totally different. Like, she doesn't get all that movement. See how steady I had taken an iron swing, and then I showed her that, and I was like, do you see how steady you keep your pelvis in your backswing with your irons? I said, I need you to do that with your driver. And then, like I said, she went back to her station and started working on it. And I wish I would have gotten a capture of her swinging better, but I didn't, because that class had 4 to 5 girls in it. So, but it did work. So, okay. I want to show you an adult female. Her name's Colleen. She's about to be a retired school teacher. I picked her just to show you how, like I said, she's new to golf, didn't even know how to grip it when she first came to me. So how did I use it for somebody who's not even held a golf club, but they could get benefit from using the technology? So let's scroll down here. Yep, here's her first capture. And I love using Sportsbox because I like that it's like my locker system for all my videos. So I can go back. I use the notes, the messaging between me and the student. I'll put notes in after the lesson and I'll ask the student, what do you remember most about the lesson? What stands out to you? And then I'll type that in. Or if a drill that I wanted to assign them, I'll type it in there. I may show you that in a second. So here's Colleen. We had just gone over her assessment. Even though this was a swing and a miss, I still want to show you how I use the just the regular stuff. So Colleen is on top, more of an on top golfer. She's a front post. And one thing I want to note with her is her wingspan is a full inch longer than her height. So her arms are 1 inch longer when she does her arms out from side to side than her height. So this is her first learning to swing. So you can see she's like a typical beginner golfer. So what I typically do in this is I just, oop, no, that's not the button I wanted to hit. I just get it back, and typically with them, I'll just stop the video kind of halfway back, and I'll talk about if that position is where I want them or not. And then here's why I mentioned about the wingspan, because her wingspan is longer. Her left arm, well, one, it's really bent, but two, it should be, she's going to be a steeper player. So I would typically expect to see that left arm maybe a little bit higher than her right shoulder, kind of where her ponytail is touching her right shoulder. And so I was able to show her this picture. And then later on, we worked on it. We did some drills. I think I wrote down which picture I used. Okay, on her May 4th lesson. Here it is. So I gave her some homework to do and come back and work on this. And let's see if this is the right one from May 4th. Do you see that wall over to the left by my white dry erase board? Can y'all see that? What I had her do on that first day is stand against it with her booty kind of touching the wall. I moved the net out of the way, and then I had her just do I hope I can describe this where it makes sense, a backswing and just try to make her right forearm touch the wall. I didn't even worry about her left arm. I just said, make a shoulder turn until your right forearm touches the wall, and just to get her in a better position. Oh, hang on. So let's see this one. So with her, I didn't really worry about like the hand thrust number. That would be one that I might look at with somebody else. So you can see her left arm's getting a little bit better there. And then there's one where she did it really good. So let me try to find that really, really fast. Oh, right here. So when she came back, we worked on it a little bit more. I keep hitting that. I don't know why. But I worked on what my verbiage was like structured there. That's what I wanted to see with her. Since her wingspan is longer than her height, do you see how that left arm, even though it's still a little bent, I'm okay with that. But I felt like she got in the position that her body should put her in based on her measurements. So I was real happy with that. Excited that I had the pictures to go back and show her. And so that's one way. I didn't use all the numbers, but I still use Sportsbox as a tool to help a beginner and be more visual with her. So any questions on Colleen? I guess not. Okay. All right, let's see here. I've done those. Okay, I'm gonna go back to Emil. This is Ryan. He is a single digit golfer at our club. We haven't been working together very long, I think just this year, but his goal was just to improve his ball striking. He loves to compete in the tournaments for the Men's Golf Association. So he'll play in the club championship, the member, those sort of things. And he just wanted to get better. Here's one where he is using Sportsbox and uploading to me. So I'm going to just go with this
So
first. Go ahead.
for those of you who are not familiar with Sportsbox or coaching, one of the benefits is that when they use Sportsbox for their own practice, it sends you a notification and you can see
Mhm.
it pop up on your feed so you can analyze their swing and the numbers, even if you weren't there to record it for them.
Yeah. So this is Ryan. Like I said, pretty solid golfer. His grip style is under. You can probably really see that under grip, but he is a front post. So this was the first time I'm working with him. I'm gonna just play the video and let you see it. Let me scrub it where it gets. Okay, there we go. All right, we'll play from here so you don't have to wait and wait and wait. Okay, so he's won. So I would say even when I recorded this is back in June, I probably still wasn't using the sway gap number like how I'm using it now. I was probably still looking more even in June, like I said, because I feel like this is new information for me that I'm just learning over the summer how to use sway gap in my lessons. But I probably was still just using turn and kind of basic sway. But he's one that I think it's good to see where he is here. So he's one, like I said, I probably wasn't even using sway gap at this point, but I would use sway. And so I would look at him and I was like, your turn numbers aren't bad, but I'm seeing some red on your sway numbers. And so with him, I was like, okay, we've got to look at that, but let's bring it into the impact position. And so what I saw here is the big red flag to me was the chest sway. His chest is not behind his pelvis. Look, it's what, a tenth of an, I mean, it's basically he's stacked, especially if you look over at his avatar, you can see he's stacked. So he's one I was like, how am I going to get his pelvis at impact, or not his pelvis, his chest to be behind his pelvis? So he's one that I had to work on that. Um, he's one because he's a front post. I took advantage of that hitting on a downslope. Um, and then I'm looking at my notes that I wrote down. I talked about the timing of when that weight should transition to his lead leg. So he's one, I'm going to put it back on him. I spoke about, I was like, okay, Ryan, you're at the top. By the time your left arm is starting to get parallel to the ground, I need the pelvis, I need the weight on the left leg, but I don't need your upper body stacked over it. I need it to start moving behind the pelvis because you can see in his avatar, he's still really stacked on top of each other. And then I was like, okay, by the time that shaft is parallel to the ground, I really should see some separation, start seeing the chest behind the pelvis, and you're not. I showed him, I'm like, okay, look how stacked you are. So that's kind of how I used it with him, and gave him some homework. You could see he turned in some videos and showed me that he was working on it, although it was from down the line instead of face on, but that's okay. So I just really tried to talk to him about the relationship between his chest and his pelvis. Showed him the numbers, showed him the lines, and then, like I said, gave him some homework on posting a little bit more. I felt that if he used that left leg to post on a little bit more, it would help keep his chest behind his pelvis better. So then we did an
Do you have
encore.
a specific number that you wanted him to get to with his chest swing at impact?
I would say at this point, I probably still wasn't as specific. I just told him I needed it behind. So, like I said, I'm still learning, how to use the software better every day. And I feel like I'm much better, here it is September than I was even in June. Just watching the education that you put out. I cannot stress that enough. Just get on y'all's education. It's so helpful. I'll go back and rewatch it in the mornings while I'm getting ready for work. I'll just go on to y'all's YouTube channel and just pick one to replay and rewatch it. That would be my advice. But as far as like where I wanted him to be, no, Jihei, I don't think I gave him a specific number. I just told him, I was like, you've got to get your chest. I was like, they're basically on top of each other. I was like, we need to get that separated more. So like I said, at that time, I wasn't as in tune. Now watching Terry and he's going through what the numbers should be, I'm much better at it today. And then just recently, we did an on-course lesson. This is from September 4th. I think he's a little bit better here. I don't really remember this swing off the top of my head. I'm going to be honest, but let's look. Okay, here we go. I'll just play it for you so you can see. Now this is a driver versus an iron. Okay, just visually, maybe he got a little bit more behind. So let's take a peek. So now we can see front post. He's pretty stacked over his pelvis, his upper body. He gets to the top, kept it about the same. So now let's start bringing him down. So, okay, I'm liking this already. I kind of went a little too far, but watch his, if you're looking at my screen, the pelvis and the chest sway numbers. Don't worry about the sway gap number, but can you see how that pelvis is starting to outrace the chest sway? So he is improving quite a bit. Look at that, guys. So now his chest is way more behind. And if he and I were together, I don't think he and I even went back over this because, like I said, it was an on-course lesson. But look at that difference. How much better is he going to be hitting the ball? So, like I said, he's just somebody that wanted to just kind of refine his ball striking, get rid of a few misses. We haven't worked a ton together. I made a note that on this lesson, though, when we finished the lesson, I told him to keep working on posting on his left leg. So keep hitting on those down slopes so that he would keep his chest behind his pelvis at impact a lot better.
Okay, so we've got some questions here.
Yay!
Wants to know, what are your favorite variables to measure or look at besides pelvis sway or chest turn when giving lessons?
Yeah,
Measure
so
so many things.
yeah, I'll just randomly open up a person just so I can see the trackers at the bottom. For my clients though, I am gonna say those are the sway and turn are probably the biggest ones. And I would say since the summer, I really look at sway gap because I have a much more better understanding on it and how, like I showed you with John, the adult John, not the kid John, like just even in your setup, it makes a difference, depending on like if you get too far in that reverse K, like that's going to cause a hook. So I've probably really using that, but I'm going to slide over. You can see I have chest side bend and pelvis lift next. So those are probably the next two that I personally look at. I really don't show those a ton to the client, but I know like the chest side bend, if they're getting too much side bend, that can cause some hooks or not enough. Maybe they're fading a little too much. And you can see this particular player, he has nice side bend at impact. So that's one that I look at. I'll kind of look at pelvis lift. That's one that I'm still trying to learn and understand a lot better. But you can see it's one of mine near the front that I look at. So that's something I might look at is, are they lifting and lowering? So he's completely not, but that's probably not something I even looked at with him. And I keep a lot on here, but I don't ever really use those. Like I said, these that I have that you can see, and this is why I like using my iPad because I can go over and then you can get pelvis turn and then all the way to sway gap over. And for the type of people I work with, I feel like keeping it simple. And this is for me, this is my lane. I'm staying in my lane. These are the numbers that I feel comfortable working with. So that's what I work with the most. And then I try to keep doing education to learn the others so that I can start bringing that into my lesson. So like for a long time, I wouldn't show the sway gap number, but now that I understand what it means, I make sure I slide that over and understand that. So if you're using the software, don't feel like you have to use all the trackers. Use the ones that you know, you're the instructor, you know how you're going to get the benefit from it. So I would just encourage you to stay in your lane, but keep doing the education to learn all the other trackers because they're going to be very beneficial. I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, we find that so like 95% of lessons that are taught can be taught with just turn and sway numbers, really. Just so many things can be clarified using just those numbers.
Yeah.
And then Janine Bill asked if you're TPI certified.
Okay, so I've let it expire. I got certified, I think in 2010, and I stayed current for probably 5 or 6 years. But I got to a point where I was at a club where there wasn't a TPI like fitness person near me. So when I first got certified, I was at a private country club and we had a fitness trainer who was TPI certified. It was great. She would come onto the range with me and watch my lesson even for like 10 minutes. And then when the client went to the gym, she knew exactly what I was thinking that they needed to do. And then she knew how to fix them. And then I moved clubs and got to a place where there wasn't anybody. So I kind of quit renewing my certification. So to
But
answer
Bill,
that, yes, but no.
Bill, maybe Phil can help answer your question. Phil, obviously, he's on the biomechanics advisory board for TPI, invented a lot of TPI systems, TPI 3D included. So Bill's question is, if you use kinematic sequence data, wouldn't that also explain the pelvic and chest sway separation data? If the player isn't swinging in sequence, it would explain the different sway numbers.
Yeah, that's true. Obviously, if you look at the transition sequence and the kinematic sequence in transition, if you're starting off with your upper body and your shoulders and your chest in the transition, in other words, if you haven't got a 1, 2, 3, 4 transition, then yeah, your upper body's going to start to get ahead, and that's going to affect the sway separation as well. The sway gap number. I'm losing my mind there for a second. So yeah, and we're coming out with the kinematic sequence information. We've got the numbers now. We've got the actual pelvis turn speed, chest turn speed, arm swing speed, and club swing speed. So you can look at those, and then now you can start looking at the gain factors. So that's another step ahead, and we do talk about that in Cert 2 for sure. We talk a lot about that in our Level 2 certification. And you can then see if the swing is kind of balanced from a energy transfer point of view. So maybe, I don't know, Janine, maybe that's something that you can look at in the future. It's a good number to start looking at, that's for sure.
Yeah. I picked this page really quick to show everybody my inbox page. You can see how I type. If you're not using it to write notes, it's a great place to put notes on what you worked on in your lesson. Or I can see like here on Emerson, I said, let's work on your downswing in the next lesson. So it's a great place I can put reminders to myself. So I just wanted to show that really quick. I'm going to quit sharing and
yeah, while you're doing that, one of the other things I wanted to mention, well, maybe before you quit sharing,
okay.
you talk about, I mean, Terry and Mike talk a lot about the grip. And currently our AI, we don't measure the grip. That's something that we're working hard for the future. But the cool thing is, of course, and you've shown it, is that we've got the video and the avatar. So if there's something you can't see in the avatar, or we haven't measured in the avatar, then you can zoom in on the video and you can quickly see whether they're on top or under or side golfer. And then you can also watch the posting as well to see if they're lead, center, or trail post. So those are some things we're working with Mike and Terry for the future. But the beauty of the Sportsbox system is you've got both the video and the 3D simultaneously.
Awesome. Okay. There we go. All right. I don't know what I did there, but are we back?
There you go.
We're back.
Who knows what I did?
Awesome. Somebody's raised their hand. Joy Bonhurst. Would you like to drop a question in the chat? I've never seen anybody raise their hand. Or maybe it's just a hi.
Hi. I don't know. Hi.
Well, that was awesome. I enjoy the variety of swings and people you've presented. I guess one final question from me is, what's been the difference in teaching with Sportsbox versus other systems you've used?
Well, like I said, K-Vest I've used, and it was kind of clunky, and you got to gear up and calibrate, and I had to try to drag my laptop onto the range, but keep it covered and keep it from getting overheated. So I would say just the ease and use of holding a handheld device, whether it's my phone or my iPad, has made it easier. It's less things I have to bring with me to the lesson tee. Typically my phone's in my back pocket on silent. So that's real easy. If I didn't bring my iPad out, my phone is always with me to grab a capture or two. Sometimes I may just open it up and say, let's look back where you were, 2 lessons ago or your previous lesson. A lot of times I'll have somebody coming and I'm like, oh gosh, what did I work on that last lesson? I'll open it up and go to my messages. And then I'm like, okay, now I know what I'm going to be doing in this when I see them, So I just like I said, that it stores all the videos for me and I can put those notes in, and just, I don't lose my mind, keeping track of a bunch of different people. So it's just a lot easier in my lessons. And then I guess the second thing would just be the buy-in by the student, like when they can see it, whether I'm explaining it in numbers or using the avatar with the lines. I feel like I get a lot better, like they're going to work on the swing change, like they believe what I say, it's truth, the numbers don't lie, or the avatar picture or their own 2D picture doesn't lie. So I think that's another thing that Sportsbox enabled me to get a much quicker buy-in by the student, and they're more willing to work on the drill or the swing thought that I give them.
One final question. What's your advice for coaches that are kind of on the fence, or, but they might be intimidated by the numbers or the system? Yeah, what's the best place to start?
I'm like, even if you didn't immediately join in, just start with the YouTube channel and start watching the education classes. But I will say Ryan Crawley, when I got on with Sportsbox, he was so accessible. He had a great level 1 and level 2 certification. The education's really, really well put together. And I'm sure it's even better now than when I went through it back in 2022. And so I would say don't be afraid. Just hop in there and give it a try. You have nothing to lose. And it's really, the more you use it, the more you're going to feel comfortable. So I'd say just start with just your turn numbers. That's it. And get really confident there. And then maybe add in sway, or do it the other way. Get comfortable with sway numbers and then add in your turn. But just start like with one simple tracker. Watch the videos, get confidence with that, start using it in your lessons. You're not going to mess anybody up, really. Come on. You're a great instructor, so just go out there, and it's just an added tool in your toolbox. So just get comfortable using that tool.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, and as Janine said, we have great certification programs led by Dr. Phil Cheatham. He's really the pioneer in all things 3D and the sport. So you're getting the best quality education from us. And we have people on our team who will walk you through all of it. You're never going to be alone. So I know you have the option to go and download a free trial without talking to any of us. You can do that, but I would highly, highly encourage you to talk to one of us, because your whole onboarding experience is going to be so much smoother. You will not waste, you will waste no time. If you go through one of us and we walk you through it, you won't get lost in the system and you'll get onboarded much faster. So with that, we'll wrap for today. Actually, Sarah had a question. The practice feature for students, that's a subscription by the student or included with what we have as coaches. There is a free version where the student can obviously see everything that you record for them. If they want to practice beyond the first 5 swings, there is a subscription version. It's $15.99 a month or $110 a year. So most of our coaches actually benefit a lot when the students subscribe because it makes their process a lot smoother. And we have packages where the coaches can actually buy student credits at a discount from us and include that in the coaching package. So, all right. Well, thank you so much, everybody. And we'll see you on our next webinar. Thank you, Janine, so much. And thank you, Phil.
Thanks, Janine.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jihei. Bye.
Bye, everyone.